Okay, we play a 10 minutes game this time. I didn't find a blitz game, so we have a little bit more time to talk about the position that arrive. And he plays a Sicilian defense. What I try to do now is to play the so-called Grand Prix attack, but I want to delay f4 a bit, because now I force him to play knight c6, and maybe this guy is normally a knight of player or dragon player, so he's not in his kind of opening anymore. So let's switch to the classical Sicilian now. d5, maybe he wants to play directly, and now I play d4, so it's just a different kind of move order if I played e4, c5, knight f3 first. So maybe he's already a bit out of his opening repertoire, because d5 is not the normal way to play here. d5 is a weakness. But I don't want to open up his position here, so the bishop has nice squares afterwards, so he has an easy game. I want to avoid this. He might play something like bishop b4 as well, but why not? I will take here anyway, because I think the whole game is now very positional, and it should be quite okay for me. Let's develop quickly here. I think it's not that good for him to exchange the bishop versus the knight, because the bishop is very strong here on the dark squares. So I want to develop as quick as possible. So moving the knight, the bishop to g5 is maybe the next move, and then I will try to improve my position step by step. And I think f5 is a potential weakness in the camp of black. I can also try to get the bishop here if he moves to b6 with knight a4, but I don't want to play the knight on the edge. So now I threaten to take here. I threaten to take on f6 and afterwards on d5. So maybe he already needs to play something like d4. He doesn't. Okay, now I can just win a pawn. Taking here, he takes with the queen, and then queen to d5. Why shouldn't I do this? I can also play knight d5, he takes on b2, and then afterwards I take on b6 with the knight. But I think the other way around is just better. I'm just winning one pawn. Okay, a pawn is a pawn, so let's grab the pawn. So now black has an easy scheme of development with the bishop, for example, to e6, but I mean, I'm a pawn up, so I'm ready to suffer a little bit, but I try to exchange some pieces now, because if you are a pawn up, there might be some chances for black now, but in an endgame where there are no pieces anymore and just pawns, I'm the only person that is able to win under normal circumstances, because you are a pawn up, and a pawn can promote to a queen. So my plan now is just to exchange pieces. He attacks on c2, so let's attack the knight and protect c2 at the same time. As well, if he plays something like the bishop, I could have taken here on b7. Now I can try to provoke him to weaken a little bit the kingside position with g6. And maybe the squares around the king here will be a problem for black. I can already try to play knight d5, he takes here, and then c3, jumping here into the dark squares is a possibility. And I also try to move the knight to e4, the other one. I think I will do something like this. I also don't like him to play bishop f5. But how? What is the correct square for my queen? Maybe it's wrong. Maybe I sacrifice a pawn here. I give him the pawn back just to win a bit of time. Something like c3, bishop f5, queen h4, threatening knight f6 and taking here, but the bishop would be hanging. Queen h4 first. I think it's quite important that he moves back his queen. He needs to help around the king side here. If I'm able to play c3, the queen is essentially a bit out of the game. What I can also try to do is playing rook b1, moving the knight to e2, e4, something like this, taking the bishop here with my rook, because I think the bishop is quite strong. And then I have beautiful knights at d5 and e4, aiming both to f6. And that's what we talked about a bit earlier, yeah? That we provoked black to play g6, and now there are weak squares around the king.
Check. Black resigns.
What did he do? I mean, there is not a checkmate. So this is fun. I mean, maybe he thought he needs to play king h8 and then there's a checkmate on h7. But if he plays king g7, I can't take with my queen on h7 because his rook would simply take the knight on f6. So essentially, I mean, black is not much worse. The material wise, it's the same. Okay, there are some weaknesses around the king, but he has more than 6 minutes left. I mean, he had 10 minutes at the beginning and he just spent like 3 or 4 minutes. And how long did he... We can see the time here. 6:43.
Check.
And 5 seconds
Check.
it took, and he resigned. I mean, why doesn't, if he wants to resign and the game is over, he can look a little bit longer on the position, and then I think he would easily have found king g7. So if you have enough time, look at the position, don't give up that easy. And here black simply lost the whole point because he was a bit blind. He didn't just see the possibility of king g7. So take your time.